The New York Giants are in dire salary cap hell right now. What can they do to clear out some more space? I'm going to tell you some ideas that I have coming up next in today's Locked On Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to a new edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. My name is Patricia Traina. Happy Friday to everybody. We made it through another week and another week of Locked On Giants episodes, and I hope you've been enjoying the program. And as always, want to thank you for making us your first listen of the day, or if you're watching on YouTube, your first watch of the day. And on today's show, I'm going to talk salary cap. You know, considering that I spent the last 2 days working on a big salary cap project for Giants Country, I said to myself, you know what, I'm on a roll. Why not bundle this up, this article that I've been working on, which, by the way, should be up on Giants Country at some point on Friday, with a show and just kind of explain, some of the things that I'm thinking about with the Giants salary cap. Now, the gist of what I'm going to do is we know that the Giants right now are struggling, if you will, to find salary cap space. Now, what the Giants have been doing is they've been doing a lot of veteran salary deals, which basically count the equivalent of a player who has 2 years of accrued experience rather than a guy who maybe has 4+ years, okay? So the base salary in a veteran's salary benefit deal, or a VSB, let's say you have a 10-year veteran and the minimum is, and I don't have the exact minimum off the top of my head, but let's say the minimum is $2 million for a 10+ year veteran. If his contract meets certain criteria, he's only going to count the same as a guy who has 2 years of accrued experience rather than 10 years. So it's a little bit of a cap savings to help veterans stick and find jobs on NFL rosters so that they're not too expensive. And that's pretty much what the Giants have been handing out a lot of. They've been handing out a lot of those VSB deals. And not unexpected. I mean, the Giants, it's interesting, they did that last year as well, but they had no choice because they were trying to stretch their cap dollars, and plus they had given out some really big contracts that are problems today. So I'm going to talk about some of those contracts and ways to clear out some money. I'm going to talk about some potential trades, and all that stuff's coming up. So just overall, I want to talk about the Giants' philosophy and what I think Joe Schoen is going to do. Now, obviously, the Giants need money to sign their rookie cap. So they're going to need about, I want to say, $12 million to sign their rookie class. All right. And that's effective cap space, not total. And the total, I believe, is 18.863, but the effective, again, is 12.5. Those are the numbers that they need. So what effective cap space basically means is the money they're going to need to accommodate all the signing bonuses, the prorated signing bonuses, plus the base salaries, and fit those that are qualified to fit under the top 51 into that structure. All right. So in other words, the Giants don't have a 7th round pick. I think their last pick is a 6th round pick. That 6th round pick, his base salary is not going to necessarily count against the cap, but his prorated signing bonus, I believe, will count against the cap. So it's kind of, some finagling that the Giants are going to have to do. But ultimately, when training camp is over, all 53 guys are going to have to fit under the cap. So those contracts are pretty much set in stone. But anyway, so let's talk about what the Giants can do to get more cap space. First thing to keep in mind is, whereas ideally a team not only wants enough cap space to sign its draft class, it's also going to want roughly between $7 and $10 million to have in reserve during the season for standard practice squad elevations, emergency signings, and that sort of thing. The Giants, I think, are in a position where they're going to need to clear money out as the need arises. So I don't expect them to go on this big tear where, okay, now they've cleared out the $12 million that they need for the draft class, plus an extra $7 million to keep in reserve, only as they need it. All right. So that way they're not jeopardizing future cap. So what is one of the first things they can do? Well, you know where I'm going with this. James Bradberry. They can either trade or cut him. James Bradberry has a $21.863 million cap hit. I can pretty much guarantee you that number will not be on their books this year. Now, what's interesting is that $2 million of James Bradberry's salary, his base salary, is now guaranteed. All right. So that is going to hit the Giants cap regardless. The Giants, if they trade him, will get that money back as a credit next year. So for those who say, oh my God, the Giants have no money to carry over, if they trade James Bradberry, they will get that money back, that $2 million back as a credit to use in 2023. So anyway, Bradberry's savings, if the Giants move on from him, make him a pre-June 1st cut or trade, would be $10.136 million, which is a good start, but not quite enough to handle, what they need for the rookie class. But it's most of it, okay? I can see that, something being done there. Now, if they make James Bradberry a post-June 1st transaction, the savings bumps up to $11.5 million, but there's dead money. More dead money gets dumped into next year's cap, which is avoidable year for Bradberry's contract anyway. So you're just basically increasing the dead money for next year. Not by a lot, but still by some. That might be the Giants' best course of action, I would think, at this point, to get the money they need for their draft class. As far as, having money to sign other guys and stuff, I think they're just going to swap guys on and off the roster, especially at the bottom of the roster. You're going to see guys coming and going. You're going to probably see a lot of, reserve future contract deals done, which aren't going to qualify for the top 51, So they should be okay going into training camp. And then, like I said, they're going to need to clear out more money for their operating expenses as they go through the season. But anyway, getting back to James Bradberry, I think right now the problem the Giants are running into is that the NFL teams around the league know that they are desperate to get rid of that contract. And if the Giants are so desperate, basically it becomes a case of a beggar can't be choosy. So let's say, for example, the Giants are trying to move James Bradberry to the Chiefs. And I think I saw a report actually about that the Chiefs might have interest in trading for Bradberry. The Giants aren't really going to have a whole lot of leverage here. All right. The Chiefs can basically say to the Giants, okay, we'll take James Bradberry off your hands, but you've got to eat some of his salary. You've got to do this. And, oh, by the way, we're only going to give you back, maybe a conditional fourth, for example. I don't know what the terms would be, but the bottom line is the Giants aren't going to get fully what they want for James Bradberry in a trade because teams know that they are desperate to get rid of him. They also know that if the Giants can't move that contract, that they will probably have to cut it because there's just no other choice. And, hey, why give up draft picks if you know that the player's going to become available as a free agent? Makes no sense, right? So that's, I think, part of the problem with James Bradberry. The Giants, I think everybody knows what their situation is. The cap information is available across the league. And the Giants aren't in the driver's seat, unfortunately, with Bradberry. So, that being said, what can the Giants do? Well, I came up with a restructure that lowers his cap number to $14.953 million. All right. And let me see. I think what I did was I saved about almost $7 million in salary cap space with my proposed restructure. And the restructure I did is actually based on a model of a contract that the Giants did way back in 2013. And for those who don't remember, the Giants had a tight end by the name of Brandon Myers that they signed from the Oakland Raiders. And they didn't have a lot of cap, the Giants didn't, to sign guys in free agency. So what they had done with Brandon Myers is they signed him to what was in essence a 1-year deal, but they tacked on 3 voidable years to help spread the prorated signing bonus and make it a little less taxing on their cap. So that's what the Giants did. It's a seldom used move, but it was kind of creative. And I'm just thinking with James Bradberry, who already has a voidable year in 2023, if the Giants want to lessen that cap hit and the dead money that comes with it, tagging on a voidable year in 2024 might be the way to go. So, for example, under my scenario, if the Giants convert $10.365 million of Bradberry's base salary to a signing bonus, that lowers his cap number to $14.953 million. His cap number or dead money in 2023 is $4.8 million. And in 2024, that number drops to $3.45 million. And you can see this chart, by the way, on Giants Country. The article should be up, I would say, by noon on Friday, if you want to see the actual math and the charts and whatnot. So that's another thing the Giants could do if they are going to be stubborn and say, you know what, we're not letting go of Bradberry for a song and a dance. We're gonna keep him and make somebody earn him, with a good offer. So that remains to be seen whether or not, Joe Schoen will do that. All right. Now, I know Joe Schoen said that he didn't want to have to restructure a lot of contracts because that's kicking money down the road. But the cap situation is that bad to where you can't avoid it, in my opinion. All right. Now, here's the tricky thing. I picked Leonard Williams because after this year, he doesn't have any more guaranteed money. What I did with him, Leonard Williams had a $19 million base salary, which was fully guaranteed. I took $10 million off of that $19 million, and I made that into a signing bonus. So Williams will still get the $19 million that is guaranteed for this year. And then I took that $10 million signing bonus, and now it becomes prorated over the remaining life of the contract. So it brings his cap number from $27.3 million down to $20.63 million. Then in 2023, he's got a cap number of $29.63 million, which I know was big, but we'll worry about that when we get to it next year, if he's still on the roster. And then I have a voidable year in 2024 in which he has dead money, only $3.33 million in dead money. So obviously, if the Giants were to do something like this, it would necessitate in 2023 probably having to redo that number again to get it lower and take some of the stress off of that dead money. So that's another option. Okay, the other thing I could do, or the other attempt that I made, so he would also be a potential restructure candidate. And Jackson right now has a $10 million base salary, of which $9.5 million is guaranteed. So what I did in that particular instance is I lowered the base down to $1.035 million, converted the difference to a signing bonus, and I tacked on a voidable year in 2024. All right, so I got Adoree Jackson's number down to $8.5 million for 2022. The number then jumps up to $18.48 for 2023. And then the dead money number for the voidable year in 2024 is only $2.98 million. Now, again, folks, I don't advocate restructuring all these guys in one swoop. Do what you need to do when you need to. And I think that's the approach that Joe Schoen will take when it comes to restructuring. All right, Giant fans, we have more coming up on today's LockedOn Giants podcast. But first, it's that time of year. College basketball's tournament is in full swing. And from all the latest odds, contests, and player props, BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. So head on over to their website today, betonline.net, and learn all about the trends and the action. BetOnline, where the games start. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the LockedOn Giants podcast. I am Patricia Traina, and we're talking Giants salary cap. And I tell you what, I've been working on this salary cap plan for the Giants for the last, I want to say 2-3 days now. And I always tell people, when I'm doing cap work, I say, oh my gosh, my head hurts, because there's just so many different ways you can go, and just trying to weigh the pros and cons of every method and each way to go and whatnot. It's just so confusing. It really is. So hopefully this is all making sense for you. Again, I want to remind you, if you need a visual, head on over to Giants Country. The article should be up by noon on Friday. It has all the charts and the actual math and whatnot. I know some of you like to see stuff and as opposed to hear it. It just makes more sense if you can see it. So, I unfortunately can't show it to you because I have, charts and whatnot, but you can see it in the article at Giants Country. All right, how else can the Giants clear out some space? Another obvious one, but one that I don't think is going to happen, is to move Saquon Barkley, who has a $7.217 million salary that is guaranteed, fully guaranteed. That because it is the option year of his rookie deal. So here's the thing, and this was a pretty valid point, and I'm actually going to put this out to you guys and ask you this question, and then I'm going to also try and answer it, give you my take on this. If the Giants are in a full rebuild, why keep a guy like Saquon Barkley who maybe isn't going to be in your future plans? Because, I got to think that even if he has a strong showing, the Giants aren't going to make him the top paid running back in the NFL. I don't even think they would make him one of the highest paid, I mean, that just hasn't been how Joe Schoen did business up in Buffalo with Brandon Beane. I don't think that changes necessarily. I mean, unless Barkley runs for like 2,000 yards or something like that, or comes close to that. But even that then, I mean, I'm not so sure that's a good use of money, especially if, Daniel Jones has a good year. And now you've got to pay him. And then pretty soon you've got to redo Andrew Thomas and Xavier McKinney and just other guys. And I don't know. I just don't think you want to devote a ton of money to a running back. All right. So that said, what would I do? Would I trade Saquon Barkley? Well, here's where I'm a little torn here. The Giants this year on offense are going to be all about finding out if Daniel Jones is their quarterback of the future. So you want to give him as much in the way of a supporting cast as possible. All right? Saquon Barkley is more than just a runner. He is also a pass receiver. He is a guy you can move around the formation and just, create mismatches with. Just hasn't had a coaching staff thus far that's really been able to take full advantage of those skills. So for me, I would be inclined to keep Barkley. I don't know that I would trade him. And I know that goes against the concept of, we're rebuilding, so why carry big contracts? I would keep him because I got to know what I've got in Daniel Jones. And fixing the offensive line is going to tell me part of it, but I also got to see what this kid can bring in terms of, running the offense. Can he also get the ball to Saquon Barkley? What are some of the plays he can do? I don't know. I just think Barkley is a key part of the Daniel Jones evaluation. So I would kind of be reluctant to move him. As I have said to you many times, I can make a case for moving him. I don't think the Giants are going to move him, at least not right away. If they do, it might be by the trade deadline, especially if the Giants are struggling. And if they can get an offer that maybe would match what Barkley might bring in terms of a compensatory pick. So to me, yeah, this is a tough one. I mean, obviously you get rid of that $7.2 million guaranteed money off your books, and you've solved a lot of problems. But you just can't cut Barkley, nor should they, to be honest with you. You have to find a trade partner. And I don't know if there is one out there at this time. Maybe down the line there might be. I don't know. But right now, I don't know that there is one. If there was, I think they would have moved him by now. But we'll see, because things change so rapidly in the NFL. I mean, what I'm saying today might be out of date by the time you hear this podcast. I mean, that's how rapidly things change. But look, never say never. I mean, let's be honest with you. If I had said to you that the Chiefs would trade Tyreek Hill, or, the Packers would trade Devonta Adams, would you have believed me? I know I wouldn't have believed it, but here we are. Things happen in the NFL at a rapid pace, and it's quickly become never say never when it comes to some of these moves. But yeah, I think Barkley is a big part of Daniel Jones's evaluation. Some people will disagree with me. They'll say, look, Daniel Jones has to be better at reading defenses, which, Barkley can't necessarily help him with that. And I get that. But you know what? You want to build up confidence in Daniel Jones. And sometimes a good running game can help a quarterback, especially one that's trying to find his way in a new system. So that's why I would be inclined to maybe stick with him for the time being. All right, Giant fans, we have more on today's LockedOn Giants podcast. But first, Built Bar is the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, but without the calories and without the sugar. Most Built Bars contain about 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein, and they taste great, just like a candy bar, actually. Built Bar offers 9 amazing flavors, the nut and nut-free varieties, plus a rotating limited-time offering of different flavors that changes up every few weeks. So head on over to BuiltBar.com, check out their latest lineup, and use our promo code LOCKED15 to save 15% off your first order at BuiltBar.com. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the LockedOn Giants podcast. Patricia Traina here with you. And I'm running down some scenarios to help the Giants clear some salary cap space. They are still in salary cap hell. And quite honestly, folks, I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. But it will get better. I am confident next year will be a lot better. We won't be having shows like this to talk about. So what else can the Giants do? Now, this next proposal is kind of radical. And I wouldn't necessarily do this next proposal because, in all honesty, it doesn't offer a whole lot in the way of savings. But one thing the Giants could do is they could look to trade one of their first round picks in the top 10 to move out of the top 10. Now, quite honestly, if they move out of the top 10 and they drop, unless they're completely moving out of the first round with one of those picks, we're not talking a big savings. And I'll give you an example. All right. The first year cap hit for the 5th overall pick, according to Over the Cap, is $6.5 million. The first year cap hit for the 7th overall pick is $5.13 million. So let's say, for example, the Giants get a trade offer from, let's say Houston, who moves into 13th, spot number 13 after their trade with Cleveland as part of the Deshaun Watson deal. The 13th overall pick's first year number is $3.514 million. All right. So let's say the Giants trade down from number 7 to number 13. If we do the math, you're talking a difference of $1.614 million to go from 7 to 13. That's not a lot. And is it really worth it? I mean, it would depend on what the compensation was as far as the package, the number of draft picks were concerned. Maybe that would make it worth it. But if you're talking straight up trade down, go from number 7 down to 13, and then maybe you pick up, I don't know, a couple of extra picks from Houston, I don't think it's worth it. I don't think it's definitely not going to help the salary cap. So if you're trading down to help the salary cap, the only way you're going to really be able to do it is if you completely trade from, say, number 7 and you get out of the first round altogether. And that would be just real stupid on the Giants' part to do that. You've got 2 first-round picks. Use them. Use them someplace. If not at 5 and 7, use that pick someplace within the top 15 and get yourself some good players. So that's a scenario to clear cap, but I don't see that happening. I really don't, nor should it. All right, some final thoughts on the salary cap. I know a lot of people ask me about Nick Gates and what the status is with him. Nick Gates, from what I understand, nothing's been ruled out with him. The guy has a tireless work ethic. Knowing what I know of Nick, I would not be stunned if he's got his eye on being back on the field by opening day. The odds aren't there. They aren't in his favor. But if there is a guy who can, beat the odds, my money would be on Gates, because he's just, that type of a guy. So that being said, people are like, well, why don't the Giants just cut him, save the $2 million or so on his base salary, and put that in the pot? Well, if his agent did what I believe he did, which was to exercise the right for the injury protection waiver, the Giants would only save about $125,000 if they were to cut Gates, because under the injury protection waiver, which you can read more about, by the way, under Article 45 of the NFL CBA, players can be protected for up to $2 million of their salary. And I think Gates' base salary for 2022 was $2.125 million. So given the injury that he had, I mean, if I were his agent, I would have applied for the full amount, that he would be eligible for, just to protect him. So not much savings there if that clause was inactive, which I think it was. So the only other places you could maybe look to move money, could you maybe get rid of Darius Slayton and replace him with another receiver? Yeah, I could see that happening. That would make sense. But again, you don't want to make these moves unless you have to. The big one is going to be James Bradberry. And if Joe Schoen can figure out a way to get him off the books and not have to take have to eat any money of that salary, anything more than the $2 million that they already have to carry, that's going to be the challenge. Because this team's got a lot more work to do. There will probably be some restructures, as maybe not the ones that I mentioned, but the Giants got to be careful, because if they restructure like crazy, they're going to continue to be stuck in the cycle that they're in right now because of all the restructuring they did last year. So that's how I kind of see the options for the Giants with their salary cap. Again, the only thing I can tell you, if you're sitting there and you're saying to yourself, oh my God, we're doomed. I don't think, realistically speaking, the Giants were going to make any kind of noise in the playoffs this year anyway. Will they be better? Absolutely. How much better? I can't tell you at this point because the roster's not set, but I think they will be a lot better. They will run a lot more smoothly. Once they have a healthier cap situation, which should happen again by 2023, then for sure brighter skies will be ahead. But right now, I think we're probably looking at one more year where maybe come the end of the season, we're starting the off season early again. But hey, the light is at the end of the tunnel, Giant fans. What can I say? All right, that's going to do it for us here on the LockedOn Giants podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in. Be sure to check us out next week. We'll have all new episodes of the LockedOn Giants podcast. Until then, have a fantastic weekend, everybody.